Ladies and gentlemen, another round of the AFL has finally seen its conclusion, round 14, and there's interesting topics to discuss. As usual, we're going to go through the results of every single game because there are important results that will lead to the very future of the final 8, below the final 8, everywhere in between. There are some interesting topics and some surprising games that ended up happening, and it is not my greatest week this week. Let's see how many wins and losses I got right now. What's up, everybody? It's the Aidan Sports Show. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be an AFL Round 14 reaction and results where we go through all of the games within the AFL and give my opinions on the games and the wins and losses of every single team, as well as my own predictions that I did in a previous video. So I do recommend you check that one out before this one. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below if your team did win. Do you think that your team has gotten even closer to getting that opportunity to play finals footy? It's the same question I ask nearly every week because this is crunch time. We're going into round 15. There's going to be only 4 more games left for a lot of teams, and some teams have byes. It's not going to be easy. It's really not going to be easy for a bunch of teams that are just there, but end up not really getting that opportunity. And it's very, very surprising. But we're going to get into the games for this episode that really stunned a lot of teams. First up, let's go to Essendon and Hawthorn. Very, very interesting game, this one. Hawthorn were up for, I think, 3 quarters of that game and were up by a lot. Then Essendon just absolutely torched their way back into a must-win game, if I do say so myself, for their side. Very, very interesting. The score was 87 to 71. I predicted Essendon to win, so I'm going to count that as a win for me. It was a great victory overall. You expect a team like Essendon to win regardless, but the fact that they came back from that far down, I think they kind of realised the situation that they're in, where if they lost, it's basically curtains for their season. Just like a lot of teams, if they lost this week, it's curtains for their season. So Essendon is in that same boat as a bunch of other teams, and they really got the job done in a very surprising fashion. I did not expect them to come back like that. But overall, you have to give your respect where it's due, man. Fair play to Essendon on getting a win that they really did need. And we'll see where things go for them in the future. They do have very important games to come. And Essendon is a team to keep your eyes out for because they could potentially surprise people and put themselves in that 8 and play finals footy when the time comes. Next up, we're going to go to Richmond and Hawthorn. Richmond and West Coast, sorry. Now, I predicted Richmond to win this game. I predicted West Coast actually to win this game, sorry. Again, check out the video so you know, just in case I do end up making a mistake here or there. I predicted West Coast to win this game, and Richmond did win 88 to 61. Richmond were winning majority of the game. It was fairly close for the most part, but of course, Richmond kind of ran away with it. They were the favourites to win, to be fair. I did go against the grain because I thought 8 in a row, they could really make it 9 and it'd be fantastic, it'd be phenomenal. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. You just have to pay your respects to the better team, pretty much. I mean, there's not really much else you could do. You need to repay your respects to the better team on the night. And it looks like Richmond have really just basically said to the entire AFL, it's not your year just yet. You're not going to have this time. I honestly think they are the favourites at the moment to be winning the premiership because of the way that they're beating teams, not the fact that they're beating teams, it's the way that they're doing it. And a lot of people like to bag on Richmond when they lose, but when they win, they're dominating. And they really have sent out another message to the rest of the AFL. And we're going to have to see where that goes, man. Finals footy is very close. All of those questions being asked will be decided very soon. Next one we're going to go to is the Western Bulldogs and Geelong. I predicted Geelong to win this game, and Geelong very well did win this game. However, this was a very close game. As I did say, I thought this was going to be extremely close. And Western Bulldogs, I believe, for 2.5 quarters were fantastic. The first quarter was absolutely amazing from them. But from then on, even though they were good in the second quarter, they weren't good enough because Geelong ended up, I think, scoring the last 3 goals of the quarter. Then they gradually made their way back. It wasn't a pretty game by any stretch of the means. It wasn't even a good game for many people, you could say. The score was not very high for either team. But in the end, you have to say that it was a gradual comeback. It was a grinded out win. And Geelong did what they were supposed to do. They are the better team. They did beat Western Bulldogs. Western Bulldogs now have a very tough time to see where they'll go within the top 8 because they have a bye coming up soon. So they're going to only have 3 opportunities to a lot of teams that are in that same position will have 4. So they've really put themselves in a rock and a hard spot, in a very difficult position to try and fight for that 8th spot. And you just have to, as a Bulldogs fan, it's definitely not out of the woods. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I am saying that your job now is specifically a lot harder than a bunch of other teams that are fighting for that spot. So, hey, I love the Western Bulldogs. Like, honestly, I think they're one of the most likable teams in the AFL. So I hope for good things for them. And maybe they could slide their way back into the A. We're going to have to see where that goes as well. But again, that's another win on the board for me, for Geelong, who did what they were supposed to do. Next up, we've got Port Adelaide versus Sydney in a very, very comfortable game for Port Adelaide. Now, I think for the most half in this, it was a fairly comfortable lead. I don't think it was a thrashing. I mean, 73-47, not really that bad for Sydney. But yeah, this was the expected result. I don't think anybody really gave Sydney a chance in this game, and there's a reason for that. And we've been shown that reason tonight. It was a decent performance by Port Adelaide. 26 points is nothing to laugh about. And it's not even a laughing stock for Sydney. I honestly thought they weren't too bad, Sydney, in that game. And yeah, there we go. On to the next game. We've got Fremantle and the GWS Giants in an absolute, I would say it was a belting. I think GWS were just dominant. Look, arguably, that's another win for me, by the way. Of course, I picked the Giants in this game. Fremantle are not a great team, but they've had really good results. But I think it's been very similar to a bunch of teams where they have good results, but once Fremantle versed a really good team, and I know GWS are on the bleak of not making the 8, but as soon as they verse a relatively decent side, they start to show their true colours and they start to really collapse. And that's where I see that Fremantle went wrong here. Now, of course, this was one of those games I didn't end up watching, unfortunately. But I feel like that's the gist of how that game went, just by looking at the scoreline. Also, you have to say that GWS were very clinical and had a lot more opportunities at goal. And that really took them over the edge. When you have more goals and more behinds than the opposition, that is very damaging. And of course, no one wins a game with more goals, with less goals and less behinds than an opposition. It would never ever happen. I'm just saying. Anyway, we'll move on from that one. Next up, what a game this was. Melbourne versus St Kilda. And I predicted the Saints to win. And of course, I should have backed my team. Unfortunately, I just didn't see how Melbourne would win this game. But we did. We did. And look, a lot of people are going to say that the game was kind of, I guess, in the balance. For the majority of the game, it was extremely close. But the fourth quarter and the final goal specifically, people are going to look into and say that this was not a definitive victory for Melbourne. The bounce was extremely lucky. If you guys have seen the goal, I think you know what I've been talking about. The bounce was extremely lucky. However, anybody that's saying that it was touched before the line is just blatantly lying to you. It was not. It was well and truly touched over the line. And I think anybody, and especially Fox Footy, that's where I'm aiming this at, because Fox Footy really wanted to push the narrative that it wasn't a definitive win. If anybody believes that it was touched before the line, I want to see your proof more than anything, because I cannot find any proof whatsoever that ball was touched before the line. It's a clear goal. And in the end, Melbourne really, really deserved that victory. Of course, when you think of Melbourne, you don't think of them beating decent sides. I mean, we've come close. We've definitely brought it to good sides, but I don't think, except for Collingwood, and Collingwood's not a great side, we've not beaten a team in the top 8 definitively. And even though this was a question mark of a game, Melbourne were extremely good here, and that's why I don't want to take anything away from what they did. They were the better team. Melbourne was the better team. I think some St Kilda fans have kind of admitted that as well. Melbourne were all around the better team here, and we rightfully got that result. And it's not it's not the end of the world. I mean, St Kilda really needed to put away opportunities and they couldn't. And Melbourne were clinical. And we took a lot of shots that St Kilda probably would have wanted us to take. In the end, it's the luck of the draw. And Melbourne were just clinical and got a lot of shots away that probably should not have scored. And it ended up going in. So, hey man, that's football sometimes, man. Luck doesn't always go in your way. You're going to have to move on and accept it. And we'll move on from this one as well. That's a loss for me, but that's a happy loss. I'm happy that Melbourne are in the 8 at the moment, and let's hope we can stay there. Next up, we've got Carlton and Collingwood. Big game, this one. And of course, I'm a man of my word. I said in the last video, if Collingwood will win this game, I'll give them a round of applause because they have not really had anything positive to say about their team or even anything positive in relation to their team. And to be fair, there it is. Round of applause. Well done to Collingwood. Honestly, this was a must-win game for their season as well. And I'm not the biggest Collingwood fan. I'm sure everybody would know that. But I do respect their team when they're healthy. And so far, the team hasn't been healthy. And I think that's been their biggest downfall. And Carlton are also a team fighting for that top 8 position. And if they won this game, I believe they would have been 9th. So it is a game that was extremely important for the Blues and the Magpies, and that's why this game was so intense and this game was so important because it mattered to both teams. And Collingwood edged it out. They had more goals and more behinds again. They had more opportunities. Carlton were, in my opinion, Carlton were the better team overall. I think they played better, but in the end, if you don't put your shots to the scoreboard, then you don't win games. And unfortunately, 48 points is just not a good scoreline for a team. It just truly isn't. And in the end, I guess the loss was deserved. But I don't regret picking Carlton because in the end, I truly thought they were going to win. I don't see where Collingwood's next win will come from, and it came from here. And next week, we're going to have to assess what's going to happen with their team again. It's just one of those things, man. Again, we'll move on from Collingwood, but again, well done. I promised a round of applause in my predictions video, and there it is. Truly deserved. Next up, and the final game of this episode, Gold Coast versus North Melbourne. This is I picked Gold Coast to win, of course I did, but this was terrible from North Melbourne again. I mean, the scoreline was 91-28. I already know the winners and the losers of the week, and it's based on this game, man. I mean, I can't believe the way that North Melbourne play. Honestly, North Melbourne players, man, someone needs to explain to me why they're losing by so much. Because at the start of the year, it was not like this. Either they've shown their true colours or they've given up on the season well before it ended. And they're already thinking about vacation mode. I assume they think, this is just my opinion by the way, so you guys would have to let me know. I think North Melbourne and their players and the coach, I don't think the coach, but definitely the players, probably think that they know they're not going to get the wooden spoon. So they're just happy to make this season as stagnant, as meaningless as possible to them. They're not willing to put in the effort at the end of the season because they're not going to get anything out of it. And sometimes that happens to teams when they end up falling below what they expected or even falling to a lower standard. They give up so easily. And it's a mentality thing, and I hope this is not the case, but I'm just making an assumption. And honestly, I think their mentality is weaker than a team like Adelaide, because I think Adelaide are desperate for a win. And I think that's why Adelaide are going to have, hopefully, a better fighting end to the season. And I see their mentality being better than North Melbourne. And in the end, Adelaide might jumpstart their future well past North Melbourne if this is how they're going to put up performances. So I just hope what I'm saying isn't right, to be honest, because I don't hate North Melbourne. In fact, I really rate a lot of their players. I want Ben Brown to come to Melbourne. I haven't said that publicly, but I rate Ben Brown, and I think if he went to a different team, he would be used better. But regardless of that, I just can't believe how they're performing. Anyway, those are the games. I believe I got 3 or 4 wrong. Again, it will be put at the bottom of the screen. I got 3 or 4 wrong this week. So it hasn't been a great tipping week for me. I did pick a lot of the riskier teams, and I also didn't back my own team. And in the end, sometimes that's how tipping works, man. Not everybody gets everything right all at once. I mean, if I picked every single team that were the favorites, I would have won everything, realistically. But that's not how it works, man. Sometimes upsets do happen. In the Melbourne case as well, we weren't the favourites, and yet they still managed to win. So altogether, my entire season's predictions, wins and losses, will be displayed now. It's still relatively a decent predictions, especially for the first year of doing this. I'm still happy with how things have gone. Obviously, this week doesn't help things. Doesn't make it look any better, but it still doesn't look too bad. At least in my opinion, it doesn't. And that's why I'm very happy with my predictions and results videos altogether. Now, let's go to the winners and the losers of the week. Fairly straightforward here. I'm looking at the teams, and there's two teams I can give this to. I can give this to GWS, who is a very, very good factor. They've tied with the most points of the round with Gold Coast, and also I'm tempted to give it to Gold Coast because they've had a rough time of it, and honestly, I don't think a lot of people expected that scoreline. So in the end, I think I'm going to give it to GWS, and the reason why I give it to GWS is because that was a must-win game, and Fremantle were coming into this game relatively confident. I'm sure Fremantle came in believing in their abilities to win, or at least make this close, and GWS didn't give them a chance. So, in my opinion, they're the winners of the round. Not by much. I mean, if you give it to Gold Coast, hell, if you give it to any team in this round, realistically, because all the games were basically must-win. So, whoever you wanted to give it to, I'm sure it's very, very well deserved. But that's just who I think. And the losers of the week are definitely North Melbourne. There's no real issues with that. 28 points in a game is not even, it's just not acceptable. And especially to a team like Gold Coast, who are not the greatest. They are not the greatest team. They've done very, very well, and they have overachieved, but you expect that game to be way closer than what it was. I don't know what the issue is with North Melbourne, but if they see this video, if anybody sees this video, this was definitely not a hard decision. North Melbourne were far and away the losers of the round. So there you go. That is the video. Here is the ladder. What do you guys think of that ladder? I'm very happy with where my Demons sit at the moment, because a lot of people didn't even give us a sniff. And I even still think I saw a bunch of people saying that the Demons would not make it, even when we were in the 8th position, I believe 2 weeks ago. So yeah, look, I'm a little bit biased. I do think we have a good chance. We've got Sydney and Fremantle to come. If we could win both of those games, I don't see why Melbourne can't make it. But of course, there are teams below us that are well and truly deserving as well. So you have to give respect to those teams. And of course, I respect my own team. All those opinions about Melbourne, I have to respect them as well, because we're not a known team. We're not a proven quantity. We don't know what to expect from this team. But hopefully with time and improvements and overall just a general maturity of the team, we will see a better Melbourne Demons, and we'll also see hopefully finals football for years to come. But that's just a hopeful Demons fan speaking. Unbiased Demons fan, anything can happen. That's my honest opinion. Any team that's fighting for the top 8 position will have the best chance and best possibility to do it. So we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you guys for watching. Please like it, subscribe if you're new. A little bit longer of a video. I do apologize for that. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you in another video. Take care.